Hello, welcome to the application webinar for the 2019 Zoo Arts and Parks Tier 2 grant. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we'll cover important information you need to know about the ZAP program, including eligibility and dates to pay attention to, and then we'll explore the application itself. Before we get into the technicalities of the application, let's meet the ZAP staff. Our two-person team consists of Kirsten Darrington, Program Director, and Jen Waterhouse, Program Coordinator. We administrate over 200 ZAP applications every year and are here to answer any questions you may have or help you troubleshoot your application. Here's contact information for both of us, and please don't hesitate to reach out. We would also like to introduce you to the ZAP Tier 2 Advisory Board. The Tier 2 Advisory Board has 9 volunteer board members from the community, including 2 mayors located in Salt Lake County. Diverse representation is prioritized with the Tier 2 Board, particularly with geographic representation. We strive to have at least 1 board member from every district in the county. The board member's role is to review and score applications and make funding amount recommendations. They then take the funding recommendations to County Council for approval. A board member's term is 3 years, and they may serve up to 2 terms. This is the group who determine your scores and funding recommendations after carefully reviewing your applications. Last year, the Tier 2 Board put in more than 600 cumulative hours reviewing applications and creating funding recommendations for County Council. ZAP staff do not review your applications, but are the administrative keepers of them, ensuring that the board has all of the information needed and that all questions are answered during review. Staff do not advocate for or impact scoring recommendations. If you receive funding, this is the group to invite to your events as much as possible throughout the year. This gives them the opportunity to experience hands-on what you do and why you do it, beyond just reading your application. As we explore the ZAP application, we'd like you to keep in mind ZAP's mission: to enhance resident and visitor experiences through art, culture, and recreational offerings. As you can see, ZAP's Tier 2 grants are one piece of ZAP's funding pie. ZAP also funds 22 Tier 1 and 3 zoological organizations every year, as well as provides funding for parks and recreation across the county. Last year, ZAP Tier 2 funded 183 organizations, splitting $2.4 million between them. Tier 2 is unique. Its funding is available annually, and all organizations must submit a new application each year to be considered for funding. The application opens in the beginning of January each year. If you do not yet have this on your calendar, we suggest adding it to be sure you're prepared to apply. The application closes in the end of March and has a strict 3 p.m. deadline on the day the application closes. Late applications will not be accepted. However, if you're having trouble with your application prior to the deadline, please contact ZAP staff and we're happy to help troubleshoot. Tier 2 funding is a competitive process, and although most organizations are funded year to year, no organization is guaranteed funding. Applications are ranked on their merit, and funding amounts are determined by the application review in conjunction with the organization's past funding history with ZAP. The ZAP program is formed by state statute and county policy and ordinance. The state statute clearly defines who is eligible for ZAP funding. Organizations must have 501c3 status or be a part of a designated arts or cultural organization by your municipality. Provide arts or cultural programming specifically within Salt Lake County, which is open to the public, and belong to a discipline that ZAP funds. A list of Tier 2 disciplines, along with their definitions, is available on our website under the Tier 2 page. We strongly recommend you refer to your organization's mission when you select your discipline and pick the choice that most accurately reflects it. Your organization will be evaluated with others in your same discipline, so your organization should select its clearest primary purpose. If you're having trouble selecting your discipline, please feel free to contact ZAP staff to discuss. However, the choice will ultimately be up to your organization. ZAP's policies, ordinance, and statute identify specific restrictions for ZAP funding. These items are included in your application for reference. Any requests for these activities will not receive funding. It's also important to note that being eligible for funding does not guarantee that your organization will receive funding. In particular, please note that ZAP grants cannot be used for activities outside of Salt Lake County, capital improvements, school programming, re-granting, and fundraising. Please review the entire list of restrictions before you fill out your application to be sure you're not requesting funds for ineligible uses. Your application will be reviewed along with other organizations in your discipline and will be scored according to the following criteria: artistic and cultural vibrancy, public benefit and outreach, and organizational capacity. There's a copy of the scoring criteria, along with an explanation of how the advisory board determines scores, in the resources library of your ZoomGrants application. It clearly describes high scoring, average scoring, and low scoring applications in reference to these scoring criteria. It also shows which application questions refer to which scoring criterion so that you can keep them in mind while filling out your application. The advisory board scores on a 5-point scale, with 5 being exceptional and 0 being non-competitive. The average score last year was 3.45. If you would like to receive your scores from last year's application, please contact ZAP staff and we'll be happy to send them to you. The ZAP Tier 2 application closes at the end of March each year and then follows this general timeline. Between April and June, applications are reviewed. Between July and August, recommendations are made and brought to County Council for approval. From September to December, contracts are signed for funded organizations and ZAP staff processes the payments. The disbursement occurs the following year. This year, the Tier 2 application closes on March 29th at 3 p.m. Please note that late applications will not be accepted and plan for your application accordingly. If you have questions or need assistance prior to this, please contact ZAP staff. If your organization is funded, it will receive its grant funds the year after you've applied. In order to receive payments, your organization needs to sign its ZAP contract, which will be sent in early fall the year you apply. It's extremely important that you sign your contract expediently, as this allows ZAP staff to process your payments in a timely manner. ZAP funds are disbursed in 2 payments, 60% in January and 40% in April in the year following your application. Funds for the 2019 application will be disbursed in January and April of 2020. The funding cycle takes a little under a year to complete due to the time it takes for the county to process tax revenues. We love connecting with our grantees. ZAP has a wide Facebook and Instagram audience, and we utilize our social media to promote the ZAP program and to inform the public about the amazing work your organizations are doing. If your organization is funded, we invite you to share your upcoming events and your organization's accomplishments to przap@slco.org. When we're able to, we'll share these out on social media so that the public can see what you're up to. Whether you're a funded organization or an organization looking to apply, please sign up for the ZAP newsletter. This is our primary mode of communication with grantees and applicants, where we share important deadlines and program announcements, as well as other grants and opportunities that might be useful to your organization. To sign up for the newsletter, please go to www.zapisu.org. Click Tools for Organizations on the left-hand menu, then click Sign Up for the ZAP newsletter. As we mentioned earlier, one of the best ways to help the board get to know your organization is to invite them to one of your events. ZAP grantees are contractually required to invite the ZAP Tier 2 board to at least one of their events for free a year, which gives them the opportunity to experience your work and give context to your application. To invite the board to an event, go to zapisu.org. Click Tools for Organizations on the left-hand menu, then click Invite the Advisory Board. Please utilize this invitation form in lieu of physical invitations or individual emails to ZAP staff. Now it's time for the application demonstration. Your organization will create and use one application with ZoomGrants for the Tier 2 grant. You can give permission to multiple individuals to access and edit your application. Each individual must have their own ZoomGrants account. The owner of your application is the person who first creates it and is called the application contact. The application contact has full control of the application. They have access to and can edit every section of the application, and their account is the only account that can invite other people to collaborate on the application. If you do not yet have a ZoomGrants account, you'll create it when you go to the ZAP application. We'll follow up on this in a minute. If you have used ZoomGrants in previous years to create or collaborate on an application, this is the account you'll log into to create this year's application. If you've forgotten your password to that account, please go to zoomgrants.com/login and click the gray Forgot Password link under the orange login button and follow the instructions. You'll need to be able to log in to create a ZAP application. To create a new application, go to zapisu.org. Click the Tier 2 button. click the Apply tab. At the bottom of the page, you'll find a 2019 ZAP Tier 2 application Apply Here button. This will take you to the page where you can create a 2019 ZAP Tier 2 grant application. Please note that you'll only use the link or the button under the Tier 2 Apply tab to create your ZAP application. Every time you use this link, it takes you to the page to create a brand new application. After you've created an application, you'll access it by logging into zoomgrants.com/login, and then your application will be on your account homepage. Click the blue 2019 ZAP Tier 2 Application Apply Here button. If you have an existing ZoomGrants login, sign in using the boxes in the upper right-hand corner. If you do not have an existing ZoomGrants login, click the New ZoomGrants Account button on the right side of the page and follow the instructions to create a new account. When you have created your account, you'll be taken to a page that lists open programs for Salt Lake County. Click Apply to the right of the ZAP 2019 Tier 2 application, and this will open an application for you. Alright, so you've opened your new 2019 ZAP Tier 2 application. You'll first see information about the application that we've already discussed in this webinar, organized under description, requirements, and so on. We recommend reviewing this as you write your application. You can click the Hide This link to collapse the text, and then you can open it again by clicking the gray button above. Then you'll see the Application Resource Library. These are documents or links that will be important to you during your application. The 2019 scoring criteria document clearly outlines the criteria we reviewed earlier and shows you how board members score the sections. Please download this file and review it. ZAP does not require Tier 2 organizations to formally adhere to the Utah Nonprofit Association Standard of Ethics. However, it's a strong recommendation. You'll find a link to that information here. Discipline definitions will take you to a page with a clear outline of every discipline that ZAP can fund. If you're questioning if you're in the right discipline, this list defines each and is what the board members use to determine discipline appropriateness. If you need to find your Utah entity number or business ID, this link will take you to a site where you can search for it. We've included a PDF of the application questions and instructions for individuals who more easily refer to physical copies. However, please note that this is for reference only and your application must be submitted online. We've also uploaded a document of new FASB accounting pronouncements that may be useful to share with your accountant or the individual in charge of your finances. These are changes that are being made to the reporting of audits that will impact nonprofits over the next several years. These have no impact on your application and are purely for your information. Now you've reached your application. Along the top of the application, you'll see several tabs: Summary, Eligibility Check, and so on. You'll use these to navigate within your application. There will also be light orange instructions boxes on each tab with information to help guide your grant writing. On the Summary tab, you'll fill out your organization's contact information. The individuals listed here are who ZAP staff will contact with any questions about your application, so please be sure this information is current. Please note that when you're filling out the name your organization is doing business as, this should be how you're referred to and recognized in the community. If your overall organization is not eligible for ZAP funds and you're applying as an admin unit or a particular project, for example, an organization's concert series, please use that name. The legal name of your organization will be entered into your contract. This needs to be a full name. Please do not use identification numbers or acronyms in either of these boxes. This tab is also where you'll enter in the amount of ZAP funds you're requesting. This amount should match question 13 under Application Questions and your requested amount on the Budget tab. Organizations requesting $15,000 or more must have been funded in ZAP for at least 3 consecutive years and will have to provide additional financial information, which will be explained in the Documents section. Earlier in this webinar, we mentioned collaborators. Below CEO/Executive Director, you'll come to the Collaborators section. Collaborators are individuals who you, the application contact, invite to see and/or edit your application and later on your contract and evaluation. To add a collaborator, enter in their email, first name, last name, and their title within your organization. If you just want them to view the application, don't click the application box under editing access next to their name. If they do need to edit the application, you must click that checkbox or they'll only be able to view it. Then click Invite. If they have a ZoomGrants account with that email, they'll receive a notice that they've been added to the application. If they do not have a ZoomGrants account, they will receive that notice with a link to create an account. If your organization is funded, you'll need to return to this page later in the year and click the contract box under editing access for the individual who needs to sign the contract for your organization. All editing access is given manually by the application contact. If an individual can see parts of the application but can't edit them, the application contact must return to this collaboration box and check the appropriate edit access checkbox. Next is the Eligibility tab. This tab will allow you to determine if your organization is eligible for ZAP funding. First, you'll select what entity your organization is. For question 2, you'll provide address data if you have it, and then for question 3, you'll select your organization's discipline. Question 2 is new this year and is for informational purposes only. ZAP is creating a map of ZAP grantee activity, and we'd like to populate it with as accurate of locations as possible. If your organization has a brick-and-mortar location or always performs in the same public space, please provide that physical address. If your organization tends to perform most often in up to 3 spaces, please provide those. But if your organization does not regularly use the same space, please just note that in the box. This isn't your organization's mailing address, but where the public would recognize you as holding your programs. Then, question 4 will collapse questions 5 and 6 depending on your answer. Please select your organization's primary purpose. If your overall organization's primary purpose is not arts and culture or botanical work, but the admin unit or program for which you are applying for ZAP funds is, please select Other and explain. If you selected Other for question 4, you'll answer questions 5 and 6. You're considered an eligible admin unit so long as the programming meets the ZAP eligibility requirements and you're able to provide separate bookkeeping for that unit. For example, a nonprofit dance company within a university that maintains its own books would be an admin unit. An art or cultural specific festival put on by an organization that broadly focuses on environmental research that has its own separate books and budget would fall into this category as well. Question 8 will, for most organizations, be your upcoming budget year. Please identify the 12-month budget year in which the ZAP funding you are requesting in this application will be used. This 12-month span can fall anywhere between January 2019 to December 2020 and should be your existing fiscal or calendar year. The next tab is the meat of your application, the application questions. You can start off this tab by inserting the embed code of a short video for your organization. It's not required and it won't count against your application. However, this will be the first thing the board members see and gives you the ability to provide a compelling visual to your narrative. The first 3 questions are technical. The board will begin with reading your mission statement and then the year your organization incorporated. This should be the year your organization became a nonprofit. You can provide additional explanation if needed, but please keep it brief as it's largely treated as quantitative data. For example, if your organization recently became a nonprofit but operated as a for-profit entity for 20 years prior, you can provide that information in a short statement to give the board a sense of how long your organization has been around. The rest of the questions are divided into the 3 scoring categories. First is artistic and cultural vibrancy. Question 4 for artistic and cultural vibrancy is literally what we copy and paste and provide on our website grantee directory. Question number 5, describe your organization's major programs, should be treated like a resume for your organization. This can include programs your organization does that are not eligible for ZAP funding, and it should give the board a sense of the scope and reach of your work. Please describe for each program what it is, what its primary audience is, and why your organization created it. Question number 6 is new this year and has been added to give your organization space to clearly define its unique cultural artistic value in Salt Lake County. This should explain how you stand out among other organizations in your same discipline and how you're doing it well. This could be a high standard of your artist selection, the unique geographic community you serve, the deep dive of participant experiences, and so on. The next category is public benefit and outreach. Question 7 is one that the board members always particularly love reading. The scope of this story is up to you. It could be a particular individual's experience, or it could be a broad-reaching impact of an entire program. It should exemplify how tax dollars are supporting an organization that has an active impact on its community. Question 8 should be just one organization. If your organization partners often, you can upload a complete list under the Documents tab. What we're looking for with this question is an example of how your organization leverages its resources and partnerships to amplify its impact. Competitive applications typically highlight a partnership that speaks strongly to their mission and demonstrates a good use of tax dollars. Question 9 is new to the application this year, and it's intended to give your organization the opportunity to clearly explain how you're reaching underserved communities, which is a funding priority for ZAP. We want to stress that we're not asking organizations to create new programs for this answer, but rather we know applicants are already doing this great work and want to provide an opportunity to directly highlight it for the reviewers. Underserved populations have limited access to resources and can be defined by a variety of factors: geography, language, race, economics, age, physical accessibility, and so on. For example, both music programs for refugee youth and art classes for socially isolated individuals in care facilities would be reaching underserved populations. The next section of application questions is organizational capacity. Question 10 should give the board a sense of how your organization does everything it does, as well as how you're involving engaged individuals in your work, whether you're completely volunteer-run or have a full-time paid staff. Questions 11 and 12 will only be available to answer if your organization is asking for more than $15,000. While answering these questions, we recommend you clearly include how ZAP funding has impacted and will impact your organization's goals and planning. The next question is about your request. When explaining how your ZAP funding would be used, please be as specific as possible. Include what will be happening and when and where it will take place. Actual physical locations are helpful, as well as what amount you expect to allocate toward it. If you're asking for increased funding this year, this is a good location to explain why your organization needs additional funds and how they'll use them well. Justifications for your ask are always appreciated. One way in which ZAP funding is unique is that if your overall organization is an arts or cultural nonprofit, you can allocate your grant toward operational costs, such as staff salaries, rent, utilities, etc. If your request is going toward operational costs, please be as specific as possible about what is being funded, and if necessary, provide more justification. For example, $2,500 going toward staff salaries to bring on another part-time staffer, or $500 going toward monthly utilities. One note we wanted to provide is that when the board is determining funding amounts, they consider most closely the application itself and the previous funding amounts, as opposed to the previous request amounts. Consider this when you're explaining your justifications for funding. For example, my pretend nonprofit may have requested $13,000 last year, and we're requesting $14,000 this year. But I should justify my $14,000 request with the $6,500 I was granted last year in mind while I'm explaining our need for additional funds. When you're filling out the budget section, this answer should also match what's provided in the budget tables. We recommend double-checking that they're the same number before submitting your application. Now we come to the Budget tab. The Budget tab features just one small change this year. Instead of uploading a record of your finances from the most recently completed fiscal year into your documents, we've simply added an additional column into the budgeting tables where you can enter in those same numbers. This allows the board to more easily compare your budgets at a glance. First, you'll enter in your funding sources and revenues. In the first column, please enter in the completed actuals for your most recently completed budget year. In the second column, please enter in the projected revenue numbers for your current budget year. In the third column, please enter in the projected revenue numbers from the budget year in which you are asking for ZAP funds. For most all organizations, this will be your next budget or fiscal year. For example, my organization's fiscal year runs July to June. For this year's 2019 Tier 2 application, I'll provide completed actuals for fiscal year 18, I'll provide the projected budget numbers for fiscal year 19, and then I'll provide the projected budget numbers I've determined for fiscal year 20, in which I plan to spend my ZAP funds. The expenses table functions the exact same way, except there's a fourth column in which you'll indicate where you're allocating your ZAP request for the budget year you're requesting, which is your third column. Your third column numbers should include the ZAP request that you indicate in the fourth column. These allocations must also match what you indicated in question 13 under application questions. Additionally, the amount of in-kind revenue you enter should be the same number as the amount of in-kind expenses. At the bottom of the budget table is a box for your budget narrative. We strongly suggest providing an explanation for anything you think the board might question or need additional information on. Some of the budget items specifically indicate explain in narrative. Explain these in the budget narrative by indicating the line number, for example, number 10 dash, and then your justification or explanation. The Data tab is new this year, but its questions are not. They've simply been moved from the application questions. This information is used to report on the impact of arts and cultural programming in Salt Lake County. The numbers you provide should be from your most recently completed fiscal year. Under the Public Activities section on this tab, if your organization works in 1 or 2 cities or towns, please know that this does not negatively reflect on your application. This is informational and helps ZAP as we're evaluating the program's reach, but concentrated focus in a few areas doesn't damage your application's competitiveness. Last, we have the Documents tab, where you may upload files and additional materials. The only document required for all organizations applying is your board list. This is a protected document and will not be shared with the public. However, please exclude your board addresses as the county does not collect this information. If you're requesting more than $15,000, please look over the additionally required financial documentation. For requests over $15,000, you'll need to provide an auditor's peer review letter provided by an outside auditor to your CPA firm. You'll need to ask your CPA for a copy of this. For requests over $15,000 but under $30,000, you'll need to provide a certified financial review for the most recently completed fiscal year. For requests of over $30,000 but under $60,000, you'll need to provide a certified financial audit for your most recently completed fiscal year. And for requests over $60,000, you'll need to provide certified audits for the past 3 completed and consecutive fiscal years. These additional financial documents must be uploaded by May 17th of this year. The Documents tab is also where you'll upload any additional files to supplement your application, such as video clips, photos, brochures, annual reports, etc. These are not required, but they can be a helpful way to have the board members learn a bit more about your organization in addition to the answers that you've provided for your questions. So that's the ZAP 2019 Tier 2 application. We hope that this webinar has been helpful for you as you're planning out your application. And of course, as you're working on it, if you have any questions, if you run into any technical difficulties with the ZoomGrants, please don't hesitate to reach out, give us a call, send us an email, and we'd be very happy to help. So we're looking forward to your applications, and we will talk to you soon.